Oh crap, I pressed the record button. Hey guys, what's up? This is Big Chef JC. It's Friday night, I'm feeling a little wacky, and I'm going to show you some basic knife skills. Sound good? Let's do this. Alright, so first, we're going to show you a few different kinds of knives and what they're used for. You have your lowly paring knife, but it's very important because it can be used for anything from peeling potatoes, to cutting apples and strawberries, to carving intricate, detailed work in fruits and vegetables. So this is an essential thing to have in the kitchen for doing small, detailed work. Then you have your basic chef's knife, utility knife, whatever you want to call it, French knife. This is your all-purpose knife. This is for anything from cutting onions to mincing garlic to chopping parsley and herbs. It's everything, to cutting up chicken breasts, whatever. So this is one you want to take care of. This is one you'll find a good one that you like. You want to use it all the time. This is it. A lot of people like the Santokus and stuff like that. That's just the Japanese version of a French chef's knife. So I like to stick with this or one of these, like a flat-bladed version. This is for cutting up vegetables. This is a vegetable knife. But it's the same thing. It's a utility knife. It's used for all the same stuff. Then you have serrated knife. And I was trying to, somebody asked me the other day, what a serrated knife, when you would use it. A serrated knife is for when you don't want to apply pressure to what you're cutting. So say you're cutting fresh bread. Say you're cutting tomatoes. Say you're cutting cotton balls for some reason. That's when you want to use a serrated knife because you drag it along the edge. You drag it along the top, the tiny little blades cut, and then you don't have to apply pressure. So you want to just drag that along the top, and that's how you use a serrated, and that's when you want to use a serrated knife. I've seen some people's collections that all you have are like that weird serrated jagged edge thing. You need new knives. I'm going to provide a link on this blog post that shows you that you can buy block sets like this one that have a lot of good brand name knives for under $100. So you know, there's a lot of other specialized knives. There's cleavers. Those are used for heavy cutting. This is used for fabrication if you do a lot of ribs. If you do like pork shoulder or you fabricate your own chickens, that's what this bad boy is for. Like I said, I have a vegetable knife that's used for basic utility as well. You know, stuff like this, cleavers / vegetable knives. I think I've used this for cabbage only. Why? I don't know. I still have it. Whatever. But those are your basic kinds of knives. Next we'll be doing how to cut on a cutting board. And we're back. We're going to talk about cutting boards. Why cutting boards? Because using your countertop to cut on will ruin your knives and your nice granite, solid surface, stone countertop. I prefer a wood cutting board. Why? Because it has natural antibacterial properties. It wears a lot better. Plastic ones tend to get deep cuts and grooves in them that make them look crappy. They stain, and after a while, you're just going to pitch them. You can have a nice wood cutting board for 5 to 10 years if you take care of it. Use some mineral oil on it, and it can be a really nice piece in your kitchen. Safety. But safety isn't fun. Of course it is. When you're not chopping your finger off, safety is a lot of fun. Use a damp cloth or a damp towel. Place that underneath your cutting board. That prevents it from sliding around when you're going crazy and going to town chopping up your onions. That prevents injury. That prevents cutting. So please do that. Another thing for knife safety, sharpen your knives. How do you do that? Well, you can do it the old school way, which is a steel, and this requires some practice, some skill to sharpen a knife. But it will hone an edge, and it will keep it somewhat sharp. Another thing that I like to use personally, one of these, and this has a little groove right here that you put your knife in, and you just run it right along in there. Sharpens up your knife really nice. You can also buy a sharpening stone that, like a steel, also takes practice and takes good. Sometimes people who don't know what they're doing with a knife end up doing more damage to it using a steel or using sharpening stone. So this was like $10 at the grocery store. Also has a little fancy scissor cutter sharpener thing. Sure, buy that. This is a simple way. I like it. It really sharpens up your knives. You drag it through, you see the little shavings come off, and it keeps them sharp. Now, why is a sharp knife safer than a dull knife? A sharp knife requires less pressure, like the serrated knife that we talked about earlier. A sharp knife will go through an item lickety-split. A dull knife will require you to, and try to hack at the thing, and you'll end up and cutting your fingers off. And we don't want that. I think that's the end goal besides getting your dish done, is not to cut your fingers off. It might be unspoken, but it's still true. So those things are a definite safety thing whenever you're cutting. So now we're going to show you how to use a knife. Yeah. Hey, you want to learn how to use a knife? Okay, cool. First of all, how to hold a knife. So we have the blade. You want to hold on to the blade just like you would a key with your first two fingers. So, beep, 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 grab onto the knife with your first two fingers. Then with the rest of your hand, grab onto the handle. This gives you firm control not only of the knife, but of the blade with your two little fingers there, see? And then that way you can spin it and turn it, full motor control of the knife. So how to hold a knife on the cutting board. You take your fingers as such, and you want to roll them under. So you have like a 45-degree angle underneath the tips of your fingers. And then you bring your knife up, and you want the blade to run along your fingers. Now this looks freaky, and for the first time you do it, it might feel like it. You might be nervous. But it's the way to cut because it doesn't have any surface to hit. Only thing it's hitting is the cutting board. Another thing is you don't lift the knife from the cutting board. This prevents it from going up here and coming down on your knuckles. So as long as your blade is running along the edge of your fingers and it's running along the cutting board, there's nothing for it to cut. This is safety as well as proficiency. So this is the way to cut. Just think of a locomotive and the way that the train, like old school style, the way the train wheels had the pistons on it and such, and terms that I don't know, and they rotated like this. All right. So as they're going, and that's the way you want to use your knife. So whenever you're cutting, just think of that. Just think of that like train locomotion type thing. And that's the easiest way to cut. That's how us chefs do it. And that will prevent you from getting cut. That's pretty much it for Knives 101. I hope you enjoyed the video, and you'll see my face before this is over. Hey there, welcome back. I hope you will learn something from our knife demonstration, how to keep a knife sharp, what kinds of knives there are, and how to use a cutting board properly and not cut your finger off. Very important. Look for us at spiritoftaste.blogspot.com. Look for us also on Facebook, facebook.com/spiritoftaste. Look for us on Twitter at BigChefJC. And also look for me on Google+, Big Chef JC. I hope you have a great evening. Our next class will be how to chop, julienne, and mince, and maybe even dice an onion. 4 kinds of onions in one? You better believe it. That's what we do here on Spirit of Taste.